This is Lesson 12, Activity 2. Now the title of Lesson 12 is Congruent Polygons, and Activity 2 is Congruent Pairs, figuring out whether or not each pair of figures are the same or are congruent. And if you think that they are congruent, to prove that they are the same by using a rigid transformation to move one image over and to completely cover a second image. So in this case, whether or not they're congruent, and is there a transformation? In this case, there is. These two images are congruent. At first I thought they were reflections, but it turns out that they actually is a 180-degree rotation of this first image, now pink, to this second image. It's a 180-degree rotation. Now remember, for a 180-degree rotation, if you take each of the corresponding, a line that connects each of the corresponding points, the center of rotation will be the midpoint of that line, and they will all intersect at the center of rotation. So if you connect all the corresponding points, they will intersect at the center of rotation like this. And so here I've drawn these blue lines to connect all the corresponding points, and the center of rotation is right there. Now I could draw circles and show you that rotation as I have in the past. Another way to check that rotation is by counting. But first of all, notice that the corresponding sides are parallel. This is from an activity that we had earlier. When you rotate something 180 degrees, it's always going to end up opposite the center of rotation, the other side, and it will be parallel. The lines will be parallel. So let me just go back for a second. So this line segment right here is parallel to its corresponding line segment. This line segment EF is parallel to its corresponding line segment, which is CD. This line segment FG is parallel to this line segment CB, and this line segment GH is parallel to this line segment AB. So the corresponding sides are parallel. The corresponding points are always an equal distance from the center of rotation after a 180-degree rotation. So each of these corresponding points are an equal distance distant away. And you can prove that it's a 180-degree rotation by counting rather than drawing circles and showing the rotation. So I'm just going to do this one time. For point E, if I count over to the left actually it's 1.5 units. This is a half a unit and 1 unit and down 1 unit. And so now if I count to the right, so I'm going to rotate 180 degrees around and then count in the opposite direction. This is a half a unit and 1 unit, so it's 1.5 units, and it's up 1 unit. So this way was 1.5 units over, 1 unit down, and 1.5 units to the right, and 1 unit up. So counting does help confirm that this is a 180-degree rotation. So these are congruent images or congruent figures. The next one, it's pretty easy to see that these angles are different. There are several angles that do not match. So these two images are not congruent. You could not slide this over, rotate, reflect, and get it to map exactly to this figure. The third one is congruent. It is a rotation, and I think it's a 90-degree rotation. Yes, it is. It's a 90-degree rotation. I'm going to show you that in a moment. But you can find the center of rotation. You connect the corresponding points, find the midpoint, and then draw a line that's perpendicular from that midpoint in the direction of the center of rotation. And you're going to find that if you do that for each of the pairs of corresponding points, they will all intersect at the center of rotation. So I showed that here. So FC or CF, the center, the midpoint is right here, and a perpendicular line goes to this point right here. B to E, the midpoint is right here, a perpendicular line. So you're drawing a line at a right angle, which is perpendicular, goes in this direction and intersects at the same point. And A to D, same thing. The midpoint is right here. I did this in Doceri once again, and I found each of these midpoints just by snapping a line segment to this line segment. So that you get that line segment close to this line segment will snap to the midpoint once you kind of move it past that midpoint. All right, so this is the center of rotation. So these two images are congruent. You can see that this pink side here that has this angle or a slant will rotate over 90 degrees and match this side. And I wanted to color these pink because I wanted to bring those out. I'm going to move them both sides out here and have them meet down here to show you that it is a 90-degree rotation. So it's a 90-degree rotation of image ABC to image D, E, and F. So they are congruent. They do map on top of each other. These two images are not congruent. They're scaled images, but their side lengths are different lengths. So they're not congruent, but they are scaled. And so they're called similar figures. And that is the idea of the next unit, by the way, Unit 2. All right, so congruent pairs. Lesson 12, Activity 2.